Welcome to this episode of the Development Agenda program broadcast on thiskingdom.com platform. My name is Mzekulu Stet. Today we are examining the role of private sector as an engine of economic growth. We are assessing the strategic position of the private sector in developing, in providing a lead in the economic development of a country. We are further looking at opportunities that the private sector can exploit so that it positions itself as the right catalyst for economic development. We are further assessing the performance of the private sector as an engine of economic growth, looking at the challenges that face the private sector and which dwarf its role as a catalyst for economic development. I have on this platform the Chief Executive Officer of the Mabote Venture Intelligence, Mr. David Mabote. Welcome to the program.
Oh, thank you, sir.
For some time, for a long time, governments have felt that or have fell into the trap that they are providers of everything, that they are providers of services to the nation or to the clients or to the citizens. They are also participating in business, positioning themselves or taking the interventionist approach to business. Can you say this is a misguided perception by governments to think that they can do everything, they can provide services, they can also be in business? Can you unpack these quagmire?
Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to come and touch base on this mammoth issue, in which I must say this is the great time that we dialogue about this issue, in which I think as we will be dialoguing about them, they will be doing quite well in terms of the mindset shift. So the challenge that we have, we need to work on the mindset shift, because when you analyze the economy, there's a role of the private sector, there's a role of the public sector. So these people, they need to come under one roof so that they can dialogue which position should each partner take into the inclusive of economic growth. For instance, right now, the role of the public sector is to make sure that they mobilize the policies to trade. When the private sector, they need to lead the economy. And once we see the private sector starting to surge, we are talking more about the taxation net expansion. And once the taxation net is expanded, we see good infrastructure that where there's a good infrastructure, it means right now it's going to be easy for investors to come and invest in Lesotho. Let me make a scenario here. I want to go to Qatar and I want to develop a place there. And when I go around the road, I find that the fiscal infrastructure is not on point. That thing on itself, it can discourage me to go and put my invest there. So I'm trying to build on, each partner have their role to play, but the private sector cannot run away from the government, which is the public sector, because the government need to set the economic policies. So which means right now this marriage, it has to be a lasting marriage. So the government in that way, if they take everything for themselves, I could say they are not doing things that are proper, because they have to let the private sector to take their role.
But can we say what have we learned from the global economic crunch of 2008, where the private sector seemed to be on its own and the government is playing the minimalist role? What have we learned? Can't we say really the government is also has a role to play in business?
No, you're definitely right. The government towards the economy, they always had a very important role to play. For instance, there are issues of bilateral relationship. I'll take, for example, the project of Buriari Phase 2. It has involved two countries to go and engage there, to go and negotiate how can that Buriari Phase 2 benefit both sides in the perspective of the private sector and the government itself, actually. So, like I said, there should be a marriage between the two. There is no way that right now the government can sit there and relax. But the one thing that they have to know, they need to know where to act and how to play by the rules of the game. Because these two characters, they are all needed towards the inclusive economic growth.
But when you say they should work in complementarity, what do you mean? Are there platforms that bring private sector to the same table with the government or the public sector, so to speak, so that they segregate their functions? That the function of the government is this, and the function of the private sector is this, in terms of economic development.
There was so much gray areas of improvement from the areas of the government side, because the government, they always believe that they are the one who can run the economy. I'll take, for example, if you talk about the LEC, LEC, Lesotho Electricity Corporation, it was being managed by as a parastatal by the government. But once they realized that, okay, fine, even in the private sector have the role to play towards the energy sector, they started to convert that into being a company now. So all I was saying right now is like we have been running, but there was a massive gray areas that we needed the areas, the development. So I mean the platform, whereby those platform can be the transaction talk, not the talk shops, whereby the government can be under one room of the private sector to be under one room to address the serious challenges the private sector is facing and how the government can assist. Because the government definitely, they have to be on the table to see that the economy is moving.
Yeah, in other jurisdictions, you'll find that there will be state-owned enterprises or companies that are owned by the state. Of course, it's always those companies on behalf of the citizens. Where do you draw the line? We made an example of the Lesotho Electricity Corporation, which
Yes.
is now the Lesotho Electricity Company, and also the Water
Yeah.
and Sewage Authority,
Yes.
previously, which is now the Water and Sewage
Yes.
Company.
Yes.
So that transition from the state-owned enterprises to become now purely private entities. How draw the line in terms of the role of state?
No, I love what you're saying, because I think we still, need to engage in serious, dialogue about this issue. Because, for instance, now we have the triple P policy, and in that triple P policy, which is a public-private partnership, you realize that there are certain things that the government cannot be able to finance, but the private sector, they can have what it takes to finance those projects. And that tells me right now that the government, as the custodian of the public, they need to utilize that facility so that at least the entire indigenous people can benefit out of it. But if there is a gray area in terms of government having the financing capability, that project cannot move. This is why we need to open the door for the private sector to come. But when we open the door for the private sector to come to the party to play, we need to make sure that on the ground we have strong economic policies in which it can de-risk the investment from the private sector perspective.
Okay. Now, let's just take a short break. After break, I want us to delve into this issue of the PPP, the private public partnerships.
Okay.
Let's take a short break. Welcome back. We are on the topic on the role of the private sector as the engine of economic growth. We are exploring the opportunities and challenges facing the private sector to play its role as a catalyst for economic development. Tata Mabote, can we maybe let's start by defining what private sector is and what the public sector is, and then now look at how the two should work hand in glove or in complementarity. That you bring private sector, you bring the public sector.
Okay, all right. No, fantastic. When we talk about the private sector, we talk about the composition of business community from individualism, like the entrepreneurs who want to, who have, run away to join the labor force, the so-called white collar. So they are the people that are eager to take calculated risk, which are the entrepreneurs. So if there are many and they want to seize the certain investment opportunity in group or in as a unit, we call them the private sector. So these are the people right now that they've run away from job, but they want to work for themselves, that they are very passionate about achieving their own goals of their business goal rather. Yes.
Okay.
That's a private sector.
Yes.
Yes.
Now the public sector.
But the public sector is where the state, is the one who's administrating the operations on the ground. So that's what we call the state, the public sector. The state meaning the government. That's where the administration, the whole administration is being run by the government.
Okay. Well, before we went for a break, you had intimated that for the private sector and the public sector to work together, there's a concept of the public-private partnership, PPP, and maybe just draw some examples where PPP is being put into motion.
Okay.
in Lesotho.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. No, that's a very good one. That you said I have to, try to unpack how can the private and the public sector come together for the common interest of, developing the society. Because all these things are being done in the name of developing the society, to uplift their lifestyle, to address socio-economic issues. So that marriage, it has been formed out of that rationale, actually. I would say where we have seen the triple P working better, we have the latest, a triple P of Harahara Makhotula is in more into the energy project, actually, whereby the government is going to use that facility from Hamakhotula. But the people that have been participating in that is coming from the private sector, although they are from Asians, and they have tried to subcontract the indigenous business people here so that they can make sure that Lesotho itself is very much independent towards the supply of electricity. And why you see the triple P functioning properly, there should be some situation whereby there can be some export. For instance, right now, our neighbors of Africa, they are in a serious crisis of load shedding. So once that triple P is really taking itself where it should be, we are likely even to see Lesotho exporting the certain megawatts to our neighbor country, which is South Africa. So which means the private sector will be benefiting, even the government will be benefiting.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, Mama Hato Memorial Hospital, tell me, is it a PPP?
Definitely, it's a triple P, but the problem with that facility, when you go for it's a very complex issue, the triple P, because we need a lot of compliances on the ground, because you need to manage risk when you get into a triple P. So the situation of Mamhato facility, it was right now that there was no succession plan. If Netcare want to go away, who's going to take over? Was it any skills transfer? Because it's very much important whereby you engage in a triple P with a foreign company or the local company. Either way, you need to make sure that if the businessman want to go away or the private sector practitioner want to move out of that facility, there has been the bank for skills transfer so that you can use that kind of skills to make sure that the facility doesn't collapse.
But do you think the government of Lesotho has developed a PPP model that is suitable for its situation, especially the economic situation?
Well, for my knowledge, the triple P model policy is under the Ministry of Finance. On the ground reality, most of the policies that we have, they need to be revisited actually, because they need to respond what the world is presenting currently. Unfortunately, most of the policies that we are using, they are quite outdated, so they don't really serve the purpose that we need for now, for the current.
Now, let's look at the role now of the private sector in terms of generation of capital, in terms of job creation, in terms of technology, innovation, in terms of the private sector being a developer of skills, and also now its role in terms of injection to the gross domestic product, GDP of the country through tax and other areas where the private sector injects into the economy?
Oh, well, the private sector is a lightning rod to the prosperity of the economy. It's really a lightning rod to the prosperity of the economy. Why am I saying that? When you talk about the entrepreneur, you talk to someone who takes calculated risk, who can invest and expect a good return on investment. But you find that when you talk about the public sector, the management is a little bit too much. The government normally they see what the risk more than the opportunity. So you realize that a businessman always win because they optimize what the opportunity actually. So I would say the private sector's role is very much critical towards inclusive economic growth. When the government they have to facilitate in terms of making sure that the players or the cabinet of industry, the crown jewels, they are much conducive. I'll take another example. You realize that if you are coming from the water sector, in order to start the project of the water bottling, you have to take your water straight to South Africa to the labs, in which we need a standard in this country. And that's a role of the government to make sure right now the facility of the standard are there so that if I want to participate into that sector, I don't have the economic hurdles. Because the role of the government is to make sure that they try to cut all the economic hurdles which are affecting the business people to act towards the economic growth.
Tell me briefly, is the private sector injecting enough into the coffers of the state in terms of tax?
Well, it's a tough nut to break because you need to have statistics if you are discussing that. By the look of things, well, I'm not happy personally. I think there's a room of development. But when I start to blame the private sector, I realize certain things that truly the private sector, they are not being given a justice on the ground. For instance, you realize that retails that were supposed to be for the indigenous people, they are being run by the other, or, people that are from other countries actually. So they are closing that business opportunity for the indigenous people. Well, the truth of the matter, when you are talking about the investor, you need investor who can come with a very, business sense investment, not just a small investment, because you need people that can combat unemployment. You need someone who can make sure right now, even when the social corporate investment, they truly participate wherever they are placing their businesses. The people around there must be the beneficial of that kind of, business opportunity.
I want us to take a short break. After a break, we now delve into investment by private sector. We look at issues of the DFI and domestic investment. Let's take a short. Welcome back. We are still on the topic unpacking the role of the private sector in economic development, looking at the repositioning of the private sector as an engine and a catalyst for economic growth. Mabote, let's look at the private sector now in terms of private sector induced constraints or bottlenecks. Before break, you briefly looked at the issue of the foreign investors coming to the country and taking those roles that I think we are saying they must be in the hands of local entrepreneurs. Let's look at when you say DFI, is it DFI or FDI?
Yes,
Foreign direct investments. Let's look at FDI and also compare it with domestic investment. Is there real investment by the domestic entrepreneurs into the economy?
Okay, no, it's a good one actually. But let's just start from the domestic investment here. And we try to, to project what are the economic hurdles into that.
Yes.
So first of all, Basutu business people, they are still inheriting the wrong mistakes about the bilateral negotiations in which they were done by, our leaders long time ago. For instance, let's talk about the issues of Burihani. Burihani, how it has been structured, it doesn't really give the local people, justice to what they, investment possibility there. You realize that the issues of the capacity, in which on the ground, the client normally want the capacity because they want the results. We are supposed to at least to try to find ways of what could be the workable model. How do we forge some synergy? If that is territory right now is a local person, but there's an area of, the gray area where the capacity is not there. How do you forge the partnership with the foreign company with strong capacity, but you as the indigenous person, you are going to make sure that you are going to benefit. And unfortunately, you realize that most of these other people that are coming from the other side of the border, they are not even banking here in Lesotho. So this is why you realize that Lesotho, it doesn't go to the next level in terms of fiscal infrastructure. Like I said earlier, where there is no fiscal infrastructure, that thing makes sure that the risk is going up, because you cannot risk your car from here to Kacha and you find that you might have a puncture or you might have something. Or the facilities like Wi-Fi, you cannot be able to have that. So I'm trying to first to come back here. Where is the hurdles? One, the economic policies were not correctly done a long time ago.
But before we get to economic policies, let's look at the trade policy, because I think FDI falls under trade policy.
Yes.
Is the FDI that we have, if we have one, does it stipulate the roles of foreign investors vis-a-vis the domestic investors in terms of, say, ownership? There should be co-ownership. Say, for instance, in my own view, I'm not a large-scale businessman.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking that if a foreigner comes to the country, the FDI policy should state you own a certain percentage into this business if you venture into the area where Basotho don't have capacity. And Basotho should own this so much ownership, percentage in terms of ownership. Does our FDI have those stipulations?
No, everything needs to be restructured, but I'll just go on the surface of this matter. One could say the FDI, when they come to the mountain kingdom of Lesotho, they need us to be, complete in terms of we have done our assignments. Our assignment making sure right now, if they want to invest, their investment is going to be, is going to serve the purpose that it has been desired for. But unfortunately, because of the level of poverty in Lesotho, in which you realize that once there's a poverty, there's a massive corruption. And that corruption makes the FDI to come to Lesotho quite shy, because they've been injecting a lot of money. But you realize that you come to Lesotho to come and check if that money has been used according to what it has been tended to. You realize that the money has been diverted to other things because of the lack of Basotho being prepared towards where? Private sector. Because let's go back. I still hammer into a private sector, because I said private sector is the leading road towards economic growth, actually. The only thing that they need the support from the government, not the money, but they need the policy. They need to make sure right now, if I partner with someone abroad, I'll be protected and my partner will also be protected. So there are a lot of legislation on the ground that need to be addressed.
But now, tell me, is the climate conducive for both foreign and domestic investors to inject their capital into the economy
of Lesotho?
Yes.
No, definitely. Lesotho, is such a top-notch kind of a country. Lesotho is amazing. The terrain of the mountain kingdom is amazing. The water, everything that you can name about Lesotho is quite amazing. The only issue that we have in Lesotho is the issue where the media are not being empowered. So they don't talk good things about Lesotho. And that thing, it tarnishes the brand of the mountain kingdom of Lesotho. But if you really stay in Lesotho, you travel, you see, okay, fine, there are a lot of opportunities. For instance, we have Mabote. There are a lot of business opportunity there, you understand. You have Pudihari project. There are a lot of investment opportunity. The only problem, the bitterness that I've said is affecting Basotho. They don't talk positive about their own country. This is why I said we need a mindset shift. Before I close, first, let's start from the class level. We need to phase out this word like Batukiba Itsukudi. You understand? Because that thing, once you call Motumbu Itsukudi, also means that environment that we good. We have to call them something else that they are business people in an initial stage so that they can feel that I need to go to the top.
Okay. Now let's look at NSDP, the National Strategic Development Plan, which has been extended to 2028
Yes.
by the current regime. It has identified certain sectors, the manufacturing sector, mining sector, agriculture, and tourism. Is there viability of investment in those sectors?
Well, there's no massive, activity or attraction that one can write home about it. But I must comment on the LNDC. They have done a very good job, actually, in terms of making sure that strategic plan is there and everything is good. It's top notch. But the issue that we have, if there's a scarcity of the resources, people they tend to be a little bit selfish. But if right now we group ourselves as a unit, as farmers, we said, okay, fine. We just realized that there's the establishment of a new retail store, Checkers in Maserumo. We want to go and supply potatoes there. You understand? If Maserumo, they said, okay, fine. We want the capacity of this much. If I cannot afford that capacity, I need to call my brother and we combine. When we get to Checkers, we go there as a unity and we benefit as a unity. So there's a lot of, things that we need to transform in terms of the mindset. How do we approach business? How are we not? Because the other issue that I realize, we don't have to emotionalize the business. Because once we start to emotionalize the business, we are not going to welcome, good investors when they come to Lesotho. And I'm talking about the good investors because local people that have been called the investors, they're not investors. They are the people that are having the problem from their own countries. So they come here when they have their own problem from their own countries. But when you talk about the investors, you need a very good investment. 3 weeks ago, I was in Botswana, and I'm also a member of the Lesotho Chamber of Commerce. And when we were touring there, I saw an Indian, and they make this thing electrical stuff. And when you get there, you could say right now, this is a true investor. This is the true investor. So our people, they need to make sure when they attract investors, they really screen them before whether this is a real investor or this person is the hustler from his native country.
Okay. Yes. Let's take a break. And after break, we now look at each industry, the tourism industry, the mining industry, manufacturing, maybe just briefly to see how they perform in the economy. Let's take a break. Welcome back. We are still exploring the role of the private sector as a catalyst of economic growth of Lesotho. I am with Ndate David Mabote, who is the CEO of Mabote Venture Intelligence. Ndate Mabote,
Yes, sir.
let's now delve into the industries or specific sectors that have been identified under NSDP2, which we have said has been extended to 2028. Let's look at tourism.
Okay, tourism. Okay. When we talk about the tourism, we talk about the marketing tool of any state. Because most of the people they will invest once the tourists are coming to that place or the country itself. It really, market itself positively towards the international community to come to the party to come and invest. I normally go to a place called Indaba in Durban in May because they have a tourism summit there. Then you realize that people that will be talking more about their countries, the interest eventually end up for those investors to invest into their native country. So, in a nutshell, what I'm trying to say, I would say tourism is a very important tool that the government can utilize to make sure that the country is well known, especially the Kingdom of Lesotho, in which it has been negatively, marketed about the hunger, looking for freebies, food, and all those kind of things. When there are a lot of good things that you can talk about the mountain kingdom of Lesotho, You can talk about the terrain of Lesotho, that one can invest in a caravan park. We just experienced Roof of Africa now. Those guys, where were they sleeping? Because some of these people, they are used to the 5 stars to their own hotel. When they come to Lesotho, they need to really have a feel about the kingdom of Lesotho. So we need someone from the private sector to go and invest in the what? In a caravan park there. So there are a lot of investment possibilities in the tourism as well.
Tell me, do we have proper tourism attraction sites apart from hospitality, which is part of tourism? But now let's look at tourism attraction sites. We have Malitunyana Falls, Kitane Falls, and many other areas. Do we have them in a proper shape?
It's about, continuous evangelism of the tourists are very much important, and we need to, treat them like our own. I was touching base with someone at the same place when I was there. Said, okay, the problem that we experience in Lesotho, these boys that are running after the cattle, they beat us with stones when we are there. You understand? So you realize that proper ministry, which is the Ministry of Tourism, through its parastatal, which is LTDC, they need to make sure that they are going to educate those people about the tourists actually, because some of these people, they need a lot to be educated about the importance of the tourists in our country. Because with one incident, it makes sure that someone might decide that I'll never visit that country once again.
To tell me why is a road to Malitunyana not tied? That's one of our wonders.
This is the issue of leadership. We need leaders that are visionaries. We need leaders that they have the smart goals. But if we prioritize things that can contribute to our GDP, Malsuyan Road was supposed to be, completed, and everything was supposed to be completed. Because it's more like owning a cow. If you are not feeding that cow, it don't give you a good milk. You understand? So you must make sure that that cow you feed it perfectly fine. So sectors like tourism, we need to make sure that we do justice to them in terms of our in the budget for them.
But now, if you look at the financial sector, where can we have a Basotho-owned bank? Don't talk about the Lesotho Post Bank.
Yes.
Talk about a Basotho-owned bank. Why don't we have a Basotho-owned financial shop? So, for instance,
Yes.
all these financial shops that we have, 98% are owned by foreigners.
You know,
Is there capacity in that?
yeah, it goes back to the issue of the mindset, because most of Basotho, they want to act in silos. And the problem of acting in silos, you can't achieve, or you can't harness, or you can't leverage the possibilities as it presents itself, actually. So, Bedco, they need to make sure that they start how to capacitate these people to show them the importance of coming together as one Basotho, who believe, most of them, they believe under one Christianity, actually. So they need to start to make sure that they form the unity from their villages, so that at least we can start, uniting these people, actually. Or so that when they go for sitting place to ask for something, they go there as a unit. And once that thing has been addressed, it has been answered, it's going to be easy for them to come with their own Basotho bank.
But why not crucify Bitcoin? Why not crucify LCCI? Or what is it doing?
Well, LCCI is just a facilitator, but you realize that the tax that I pay, the tax that you pay, it has established Bedco to address those issues. So now I have to enjoy my tax through Bedco.
In terms of policies that boost or reinforce the private sector or encourage the private sector to invest, do we have tax concession policies? Do we have tax rebates? Do we have tax holidays for business so that they are encouraged, they are induced into investing in the country?
Most of these things, they need to be revisited. I was a little bit disappointed about when I realized that the revenue service, the Lesotho, they have, revisited again, because initially they've increased the tax on the syntax, alcohol and other things, you understand. But after they hear the cry from the owners, they go back, to revisit that. So I think it's the issue of prioritizing the tax. Where can we take tax? You understand? But there are certain taxation that we realize that if we minimize them, they make sure that we don't have good human capital, because those people, when they are too much drunk, will never have responsible citizen. We might lose engineer, we might lose doctors, we might lose good people. So they have to make sure right now things like tax of alcohol and all those things, they really discourage people to drink, they really discourage people to smoke. Those kind of things. These are the things that are really destroying our community or the society. For instance, look at our national team. Our national team is starting to perform lately, but long time ago, they were having the problem of lack of discipline, that most of their players, they drink too much alcohol and they can't perform. So we are killing our society by our own hands.
Now, tell me about access to finance. Do we have avenues for private sector to tap into finance so that they can invest or reinvest into the economy?
Well, I'll echo what you initially said, that we need a local bank, because most of the banks that we have, they really manage risk. So when you are about to, fortunately, I used to work at the bank in South Africa. I used to work for African Bank in South Africa. So I know before you give someone a loan, you need to know that client. When the client, we have to know the client. We need to know at least in 6 months, how are you behaving in terms of your finances. So you realize that most of our businesses, of our people, they are not bankable. They are not bankable because they store financial history. You understand? You make a profit somewhere else, but you don't put your money away at the bank. So that thing itself, it makes the risk to go high, and it doesn't attract investment, because when the risk is high, investment is going to be very shy.
Construction, I know, is one area that Lesotho pride themselves about. That yes, we have construction companies, domestic ones, but when it comes to the mega construction projects, you find it is taken over by the external construction companies, Ramdell, your China State, and many others that have taken over. Or what is the challenge? Is it capacity? Is it the confidence that we have on our own?
It comes in series of faults. So the lack of capacity is a key thing that is really affecting the people to get the tenders. You can be witness about a lot of local people that they've been given the opportunity. You took the likes of the National Stadium. You have seen the infrastructure that was used there to build the stadium. It was really discouraging, you understand. You talk about the roads. There was a bridge as you're going to the place of Palais. When you pass, they realize that no, this bridge is very risky. So how do we manage that? We need to make sure right now, if there's a tender in place, it opens a room for someone to go and measure with someone with a strong capacity, because our people, they don't have capacity, but they need to benefit from their own land. They need to benefit from the mountain kingdom of Lesotho. They only have the kingdom of Lesotho, so they need to make sure that they benefit from local projects that are happening. But with proper policies in place, if an Asian guy is going to be awarded a tender, there should be a local person with a strong, with a strong capacity in terms of knowing certain things. But when you talk about the capacity, because capacity can come into the human development, it can also come in terms of the machinery. So these other people, they come with strong machinery, they come with a lot of financial backing, in which our local people, they have the know-how, but the challenge, they don't have the other, portion of the capacity.
Now, as we draw closer to the end of the program, let's look at um, the interventions. How can government play its role in terms of developing the private sector so that we have a private sector led economy? What should government do? And
Okay.
what should the private sector do?
Okay, you know what? First of all, the government must take its position. How does the government have to take its position? The government need to have this big building where you can find the Minister of Trade there, where you can find BEDCO there, where you can find LTDC there, where you can find NMDC there, to group them. And you make sure right now you make the business to be easy. If I want to construct something, the permit must be easy. It must not, they have to cut the hurdles of trading at all. If I want to build a hotel, the permit to build that must be very easy, because the other thing that is discouraging the private sector is the delay of things that if you are waiting for the permit, it takes forever. So in that way, we are discouraging the private sector to take the road towards inclusive economic growth.
But we have the one-stop business facilitation center, or that facility. How is it doing?
Well, it looks quite well. It works quite well as well. But the issues of the building permits, you realize that they are still a serious problem. So I could give it at least 70% so far. So the other 30%, they need to work on those gray areas.
Yeah, but in terms of the registration of a company, renewal of license, I think they've reduced the lead time from 90 days. I think it's about a couple of weeks.
But the requirements, the timing has been reduced. You understand? But the requirements are the one that need to be, to be a little bit, flexible, because that thing, when you're tightening the requirements, it make you not, to be interested to participate in that kind of opportunity.
Okay. Let's now close with, I want us to close with a recommendation. What would you recommend to government, but also to business as well?
Well, my recommendation is we need to engage in a transaction talk. The transaction talk is different from a talk shop. A transaction talk is whereby under one roof, you have a public sector representative, you have a private sector representative, you have the investor representative, you have all the key stakeholders under one roof to address the economic opportunity together under one roof. And if I want to invest, I need to know right now, you, the private sector, are you making sure that the policies are encouraging for investment? The other thing, we really need to prioritize the important things like the standard. There's no way that Lesotho doesn't have its own standards.
Now, let me interject. Where are we with the Bureau of Standards? I think that has been promoted.
It has been promoted, but you see, investors are very shy people, and there are people that want to seize the opportunity as soon as it's possible. You understand? But the more we prolong to do the right things, the more right now we are trying to expand the wage bill to go high. Because if I fail in business, I'm going to get employment where? From the government. And that employment, that wage bill, when it's very high, it means right now the likes of IMF, they've been very concerned about the student that the wage bill is too high. So if I don't get the business, support from the government in terms of the policies, it means right now I might voluntarily go back to work to the government. You understand? Then, which means we are killing the private sector in that kind of a way.
We have come to the close of our program. We have examined the role of the private sector as an engine of economic growth. We have assessed the strategic position that the private sector takes or occupies in finding its niche as a catalyst for economic development of the country. We have further looked at obstacles, the bottlenecks, the challenges that impede business or private sector to rightly occupy its rightful position of being a catalyst of economic growth. I heard the CEO of Mabote Venture Intelligence, David Mabote. Thanks very much for your indulgence and for participation in this program. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for having me.